Good afternoon. My name is Michael Geisler, and as President, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to our campus on behalf of the faculty, the Board of Trustees, the staff, and the alumni of Manhattanville College. This is the largest class we have admitted in 4 years. You are from 23 US states, with the most domestic students coming from the New York area and the New England states, but we also have 9 students from California, 6 from Florida, 3 from Texas, and 3 from Louisiana, among many other states. Among your number are 55 international students from 37 different countries. Once again, making this one of the most diverse college populations in the United States. Our international students come from Albania and Egypt, Germany and Brazil, Jamaica and Japan, Singapore and Senegal, the Russian Federation and Vietnam, and many other countries from around the globe. And here is something else that is unique about you. You are the class with 2020 vision. And you will need it, every bit of it. Your generation will have to make decisions, the consequences of which will be borne by your children's children's children. Decisions my generation, unfortunately, was too timid to make. Such as how much of our children's future we are willing to sacrifice for an extra smidgen of security. How much of our comfortable lifestyle we need in exchange for tomorrow's desertification. How to address the burning issue of race and ethnicity. And most difficult of all, how to stop a massive migration from the world's poorest and war-torn zones into the relative stability of a few protected and economically thriving regions. And so, there's a lot of talk about putting up walls to stop this migration. And it is about walls that I want to talk to you about today. In my own home country of Germany, a woman who had endured the hardships of a communist regime that built a wall around its own people to keep them from leaving that socialist heaven, and who is now Chancellor of a united country, decided that Germany needed to open its borders and welcome the refugees, because she understandably has a natural dislike of walls of any kind. She wants to tear them down. Some now accuse her of indulging in well-intentioned but dangerous naivete, because no single economy, no single society could absorb so many millions of people from a completely different cultural background all at once. Over here, we are thinking about the opposite solution. Some of us would like to build a wall, a very, very big wall. Yet history has not been kind to wall builders. Neither the wall built by the Roman Emperor Hadrian in the north of England to keep out the Picts, nor the Great Wall of China, built to keep the Mongolian invaders at bay, served their purpose in the long run, although they have survived as awe-inspiring tourist monuments. Even the Walt Disney Corporation gets this, as you can see in that wonderful movie, Mulan. Prior to taking on my new position here at Manhattanville, I worked for 24 years at Middlebury College in Vermont. And you can't live in Vermont without coming face to face with the writings of one of its most famous poets, Robert Frost, a kind of patron saint for Middlebury College. One of Robert Frost's most well-known poems, like most great works of art, talks about a very quotidian, almost trivial event. Every spring, the author and his neighbor met at the boundaries of their respective farms to rebuild the small wall that separated their property from the others, after entropy has wrought its natural destruction, and hunters have also taken their toll on these artificial man-made structures. They do this because, as Robert Frost's neighbor repeatedly says, good fences make good neighbors. But tickled into obstreperous mischief by a warm spring day, the narrator dares to question the wisdom of this old saying. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. A wall may be a useful thing to keep cows from straying all over the place. If you've ever lived in Vermont, you know that this is a very real problem. But the narrator then goes one step further. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Robert Frost's own answer to the question, although only implied, is perhaps the most famous line from the poem. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. So for Robert Frost and German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and for millions of people around the globe who think like them, walls are a bad thing, unnatural, even hostile. Because you're always walling something or someone in, and walling something or someone out. And yet, life is never that simple, and walls aren't always bad. In the Middle Ages, the walls of fortified cities provided refuge for the people living in small communities outside the city gates. Within the city walls, they were relatively safe from marauding feudal warlords who respected no central authority, king or emperor, killing, raping, and robbing whomever and whenever they liked. Likewise, the so-called peace wall in Northern Ireland between Catholic Irish Republicans and Protestant English loyalists actually helped during a critical period of the peace process to keep the two factions apart, giving both sides time away from each other to enable them to find ways of accepting the Good Friday Agreement of 1998. On the other hand, a similar wall built in Israel to wall out the Palestinian territories, while it has clearly served its purpose of keeping Israelis marginally safer, has also walled out Palestinians from their jobs and their friends among Israeli Arabs, thereby further exacerbating the already intolerable living situation for the people living in the Palestinian territories. So, are walls a good thing or a bad thing? If you were hoping for guidance on this issue from your president or from a faculty member, I have to disappoint you. The point of this particular exercise was to remind you and all of us that there are no easy answers. There are no easy answers. The problems your generation will have to tackle, from renewable energy to global warming to food and water issues to migration, from cybercrime to asymmetric warfare, and to the endless question where life begins and where life ends, are problems of such mind-blowing complexity that your only chance of dealing with them successfully is to learn as much as you can about the facts as supplied by different disciplines, and then triangulate them with what you've learned across disciplines. Fortunately, Manhattanville College is uniquely equipped to help you deal with this, because our faculty here are far more open to interdisciplinary and independent research and teaching than at many other places I am familiar with. But most of all, what you will learn over the next 4 years, if we do our job well, is this: there are no easy answers. As for walls, I suggest that the most amazing insight in Robert Frost's wonderful poem is not its most famous line, that is, something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it done, but that other one, with its implicit question, less spectacular perhaps, but with an explosive power that has propelled us all the way from the age of enlightenment to the age of the internet. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out. Here, in what is almost an aside, Robert Frost reminds us of the simple criterion that makes all the difference in the world. What are the ramifications of your actions? What is the impact our actions have on others? It is Frost's riff on Kant's categorical imperative. Always act in such a way that the maximum of your action can become the foundation for a universal law. Or, put more simply, always consider the consequences of your actions, particularly if everybody else were to go ahead and do the same. So in this context, the question is, would we be better off or worse off if all countries built walls around their borders? Like so many other things, walls in and of themselves are merely objects in space. They derive their meaning, their positive or negative connotation, solely from the context within which they are deployed. And whether that context is a useful one, a humane one, a context that makes the wall a helpful edifice to provide shelter, or simply to make good neighbors, or to keep cows from wandering all over the place, or a nefarious monument to our irrational fears, is something you will have to decide for yourselves. We, the faculty, will provide you with the data to make an informed decision. Just always remember to ask what you are walling in or walling out. I have my own opinions, of course, on whether walls are desirable or not, but my job, and the job of the Manhattanville faculty, is not to indoctrinate you in one ideology or another, or to pass on our opinions to you. If there is one thing the history of Germany has told me, is there's one value I hold dearer than anything else except for the sanctity of human life itself. It is that every person has a right to a different opinion, a different ideology, a different set of beliefs. Nobody should ever be judged by the beliefs they hold, unless these beliefs deny the basic and inalienable rights of other humans. Short of that, a university or a college is a forum for public debate, for discussion and dissent, where all voices must be heard. Let me repeat that. It is a place where all voices must be heard. If we fail in that, we have failed in our most basic mission. So let us engage in dialogue. Let us have discussions and differences of opinion and arguments and debates in the classroom and on the quad, in the chapel and on the bus, in Berman Center and in the President's College. Let us fight with words and argue until the cows come home, which they do in Vermont. But let us never forget for one moment that freedom is not your freedom, first and foremost. It is the freedom of the person with whom you are arguing to voice his or her opinions and beliefs. That is what Manhattanville is all about. That is the challenge your president extends to this class with 2020 vision.